Hello, brothers and sisters. I want again to welcome you back to this lesson. Remember, this is a continuation from the previous lesson. Of course, we are still talking about expressive skills as part of the manual skills that an interpreter, a sign language interpreter, needs to have in order to give a meaningful interpretation. Now, I want us, as we express ourselves using the sign language, I want us to be able to understand ourselves. Everyone has a problem and everyone is disadvantaged in one way or the other. But when you are able to understand yourself, you are able to carry out or perform a sign language event the way it's expected. So I don't want to tell you about your own weaknesses. I want you to understand yourself, analyze yourself, and find solution from yourself. Of course, using the points I'm going to give you. So don't wait for someone to come and judge you, someone to come and tell you or correct you when it comes to interpretation. No. Look at these points I'm going to give you and ask yourself, are you going through this problem? If you are able to understand yourself, then you'll be able to interpret. If you have a problem with listening, then I don't encourage you to become an interpreter. I don't. If you have a problem with listening, your level of concentration is too low, then you cannot become a sign language interpreter. You just better use the sign language for communication, or you can use sign language for teaching, but not interpretation. Because interpretation requires that someone signing listens to one speaking and you don't control the person speaking. You perform your work, she or he does his work. So the only thing you do, you listen and retell the story in sign language. So if you have problems with listening, I'm not talking about having problems with hearing. Neither am I talking about hearing impairment. I'm talking about people who have low concentration. They don't concentrate when someone's talking just because they are thinking about their family issues or they are having some other things they are thinking about. Those are the people I'm talking about. If you are one of them, you have a problem with listening, then I don't encourage you to interpret, but just learn sign language and use it for communication or for teaching, but not interpretation. Because expressive skills requires that we have to listen, we have to concentrate so that we get the exact meaning and the exact message being given by the speaker. So can you look at yourself, compare yourself against these points, and you'll be able to understand yourself. So one of the things is asking questions. Remember when we were talking about sentences used in sign language, we discussed about two sentences. Number one, we talked about structural sentences. Number two, we talked about functional sentences. And functional sentences, I said, it's grouped into 6 various types. And one of them is rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions. That's what I'm talking about. Asking questions is one of the skills that an interpreter should have. You set a question during interpretation and you don't expect an answer from them, but you answer. A good example is this one. For example, you want to say, Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wishes to become a leader, I repeat, Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wishes to become a leader, then you must be ready to serve others. This is how you sign now. I want us to see how the question, how you as a sign language interpreter will ask a question yourself. You'll ask a question during interpretation and you provide an answer. I have said, Jesus said to his disciples that if any of you wishes to become a leader, then you must be ready to serve yourself. We'll sign like this. Jesus said to his disciples. We go? Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you wishes to become a leader, then you must be ready to serve others. Look at that form of interpretation. Do you see a question anywhere? There was no question. So that's one of the interpreter, and those are the most common interpreters that we have. You'll never know what they are talking about. You'll never. So the way I have signed represents one of the interpreters I'm talking about. An interpreter who will not ask questions, and he or she expects the audience to get the point. They'll not. I repeat. Of course, that's perfect interpretation. But have you seen a question anywhere? There's no question. So you will not motivate the audience to want to know more information of what you are talking about. Now look at this other interpreter. Look at this other interpreter who now poses a question. You ask yourself a question and you provide the answer. You say, Jesus said to his disciples. Again, did you see any question? Did you see this? That's how one of the interpreters will sign. Again, look at this. What I've just signed. That is it. That's how you start. There is a question. What? Another interpreter will start in this form. Jesus said to his disciples. Jesus said what? Look at that form of expression. This one. It's like this one alone without even what? It's a demand. You are asking them, do you know what he said? Of course, they will not respond, but what will happen to the audience, the deaf community, will look at you keenly to want to know what Jesus said. So those are the interpreters we are talking about, that you are able to ask a question, ask yourself a question. So if you cannot be able to ask yourself a question during interpretation, these are the people I'm saying, learn sign language for communication and for teaching purposes. Don't stress yourself. The next thing is about naming objects or grouping or listing the objects. So for example, you are interpreting and a speaker mentions some items. You as an interpreter, you should have the listing or grouping or naming skill. No one will give you. You yourself, you must develop that. This is what I mean. A speaker, for example, says, we are soon opening schools and your children require textbooks, pencils, biro pens. He will mention like that. Did you see the speaker saying he needs the following lists? He did not mention, but he just went on mentioning. So you as an interpreter, you don't do the same. You must have the listing skills. Children, soon opening the school. So you need to what? Have you seen? I have posed a question just to want to bring the audience near to me, closer to me, to be able to listen carefully to get exactly what I'm going to give them. So I have posed a question. Now, when it came to listing, when of course I said children are opening schools and they need a list, this is a list. This is a list of things. And you saw me numbering them 1, 2, 3, like that. You have to. That one is common sense. When it comes to, of course, those ones who are real interpreters, that's something to use common sense. That you must have naming or listing skill. If you lack this one, and then of course you know where you lie. You know where you belong, and you know what you are supposed to do with the sign language that you have learned. The next one, using gestures and body language. Using gestures and body language. If you cannot shake your body, if your body cannot respond, if your body cannot do that, the facial expression, smiling, when someone is crying, when you are sad, if those signs cannot come out, stop interpreting. Stop it. Because there's no communication. Totally, there is no communication. So you as a sign language teller, you must be able to bring in all these things we are talking about. So use your body language, the facial expression, gestures appropriately. If you miss to employ any of this one, then you have a problem. Of course, we are talking about understanding ourselves. Then you have a problem. Then you must find a way of solving that problem yourself. The next one is making comments. Making comments. We talked about types of sentences, and we did mention about functional sentences. And we talked about topic, comment, sentence, whereby you say what you want to say, then you make a comment on it. For example, you can say, this is the book. Of course, you wanted to say about it. You wanted to say that you wanted to talk about the book. This is the book. This is the book. Then you make a comment on the book. This is the book that John stole. That is it. So bring these comments in interpretation. Bring something and comment on it. Of course, not forgetting that you deliver the message from the speaker. So can you identify where the speaker talks about something and puts emphasis? So mention that thing and emphasize on it using that skill, topic, comment. So that way you'll be able to communicate so easily. The next one is vocabulary. You want to go and interpret in a court of law. You want to go and interpret in a court of law. Interpretation in a court of law. But even the word judge, a judge alone, you don't know the sign. A judge, the very common vocabulary in the judiciary, you don't know. Magistrate, you don't have an idea about that. Then what about when it comes to really things discussing about the judiciary? You will not get anything. So can you have the vocabularies? Lacking enough vocabularies, it's a disease to sign language interpreters. You'll go on finger spelling. Of course, we say in sign language that when you are unable to remember a sign, you finger spell. How can you finger spell to a deaf person who never went to school? It's like someone writing a letter to a hearing person who never went to school. Will she or he read? Ask yourself that question. So we must be able to understand what we are talking about. The next thing is we have to understand semantics. Of course, sentences and their meanings. We have to understand the sentences or the story and its meaning, the way it's coming out from the speaker. Get to know before you sign. Understand. Have some time to understand and sign. Don't just any word that comes on your way, you sign. Have to understand. before you give out the information. There are so many ways, there are so many forms of understanding ourselves. But for today, I want us to pick out these 7 items I've mentioned, which of course becomes against yourself. Compare these things, these elements with yourself. Identify which one are you not employing and work on it. If you don't work on it, or if you have a problem, a long life problem, then stop interpreting. Just use sign language for communication and teaching, as I've said. See you in the next lesson.